Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about resurrecting the Arcanum intellectual property. I get asked a lot on this channel in the comment section about making more Arcanum. And I have videos on doing a remake of Arcanum, bringing it up to modern standards, hardware, code, UI. There's a video on it, I'll link it below. I've also talked about remastering Arcanum. I've also talked about, which I guess that's the remaster. The remake would be, hey, let's make a new version, more modern. And I've also talked about the sequel to Arcanum that we already designed, the Journey to the Center of Arcanum. Apologies to Jules Verne. Wait, that's public domain now. No apologies. So I've talked about all that. All of those ideas would require getting the Arcanum intellectual property rights. So now let's talk about those IP rights. I'm going to break this up into 3 sections. And from now on, when people ask me about Arcanum, I'm just going to link them here. I'm going to talk about who owns it. I'm going to talk about the kind of the state it's in, and then what it would take to bring it back. So let's start with who owns it. When Troika made Arcanum for Sierra Entertainment, we started in 98, we finished in 2001. That was for Sierra Entertainment. We owned the code, they owned the art and the intellectual property, the IP. So Sierra is the one that controlled the IP rights for Arcanum. They then got purchased by Vivendi, which got rolled into Activision, which was then combined with Blizzard, and then the whole thing was purchased by Microsoft. So that's who owns it. So just to be clear, whenever anyone say who owns it, here we go. That's who owns it. But now let me tell you the state it's in, which should give you an indication of why nothing is being done with it. First of all, Arcanum was a very small IP, and by that I mean in terms of a stable of intellectual property that a company like Microsoft would own, it has a very small audience. So it's a very small segment of you, some of you talking loudly, and I appreciate it, but you're very small. They probably have dozens, if not hundreds of IPs that would make more sense to resurrect than this small IP. Also, there are similar IPs that have bigger audiences. Shadowrun is one such Magic Tech combo. Torg, which was a tabletop role-playing game. There are lots of Magic Tech combos that could very easily be converted into a game like Arcanum and already have a built-in bigger audience. Furthermore, you could always make your own steampunk magic crossover game without using the Arcanum IP at all, or in fact, any IP. You could make, if you really wanted Arcanum, you could always make a spiritual successor. There are many games out there that are spiritual successors that didn't have to get rights to the original game that there's a successor of. You may be able to think of some from 25 years ago. You may be able to think of some that are coming out hopefully this year. Spiritual successor, way to go. But one thing I find nobody talks about because you probably don't know about it, and this is why sometimes it can be a bit exasperating to answer these questions. And by the way, I've answered this question about what's the state of Arcanum IP so many times. And sometimes it gets complicated. And this is why I talk about nuance and why I wouldn't do a video like this right away in my channel. Because it starts to get complicated. And people start to be like, I don't want to hear it. I just want a simple answer. It is a complicated answer to a simple question. Sometimes simple questions have really complicated answers. And here's one of them. Arcanum is an asset. The intellectual property is an asset. If, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if any of the companies I listed, Sierra, Vivendi, Activision Blizzard, Microsoft, ever used Arcanum as a tax write-off, meaning they purchased it as for a certain amount of money, Sierra can just say what they paid us for it. All the other companies, it was a percentage of whatever they paid when they acquired the company that owned the Arcanum IP. If they ever claimed Arcanum as a tax write-off, so they could take that money and say, we lost this. We want a tax break. It turns out companies do this all the time, but once they do it, they can never do anything with that IP again, because that means it has worth. And it means what they claimed years, even possibly decades ago, is no longer valid. And I don't believe there's a statute of limitations with the IRS on this, which means if they claimed 10 years ago the Arcanum IP was a write-off, and suddenly they're like, oh, wait, we just sold it, or we just started making a game with it, it's not a write-off anymore. And I believe they have to go back, undo that, and redo that year's taxes without that write-off, and then pay any interest penalties on it. It's complicated. Maybe they don't have to do it. Maybe they do. If they do have to do it, it's really complicated. So this is sometimes why people go, why would they have all these IPs and just hold on to them? Because sometimes those IPs were purchased to get a tax write-off. They were worthless or became worthless after purchase, and now they're claimed as a loss. Companies do this all the time. So if you wanted to make something with Arcanum, let's say, you really, really think Arcanum is worthwhile, and you wanted to bring the IP back. Let's call it Resurrecting the IP. First off, someone there would really want to do this. Somebody at the company that owned it would really, really, really want to do this for all the reasons I just mentioned about the state it's in. The tax and legal situation would have to be fully explored and untangled and explained to whoever the potential buyer was going to be, which may, of course, then increase its cost. If undoing it as a tax write-off is going to cost them $10 million, even though the purchase of it only costs, $8 million, they're going to pass that cost of doing business on to the person who wants to buy the IP. So don't think, I can throw 10 grand at it and I can have the Arcanum IP. Then you'd have to make a financial argument that this IP would add value to the project you're putting it in, whether it's an existing project or not. It could be, you're making a game, you're like, hey, this looks like a lot like Arcanum. Why don't we call it a spiritual successor or inspired by? And you can do that without the IP. But if you want to actually make this an official thing, you're going to have to show someone, whoever's paying you, and if it's your own money, you're going to have to decide this for yourself, is adding this IP going to add value to this project? And you're going to need to decide that, whether you're making an existing project and putting Arcanum onto it, whether you're going to use the IP to remake or remaster Arcanum, or whether you're getting the IP to make a sequel. No matter what you intend to do with it, you're going to have to make an argument to somebody who has the money, even if that's yourself. Is attaching the IP to this going to make me more money than what it's going to cost for me to get the IP to attach to this? And then finally, someone would have to champion this. Either someone inside the company that owns it, or whoever's planning to purchase it, to have it be available for people to use, even if that's you. Someone's going to have to champion all the things I just said. They're going to have to do all this investigation, find out what the state of it is, what the monetary cost, the exact monetary cost would be to get that, and decide and show that attaching that IP to something would make that new game worth that much more. So there it is in a nutshell. So you can point people, and I'm going to definitely do this. Next time people go, why are we make Arcanum 2? Here we go. Because I love that you guys want it. It's awesome. I love nostalgia as much as you guys do. But these are the facts of how the game business works. And these are the things that would have to be figured out and resolved before Arcanum would be available to be used as an IP license. Anyway, that's, I think, what would have to be done to resurrect the Arcanum IP.